But did you ever imagine, or what did you think in the late 40s when you were making these cartoons and turning out lots of them? Did you have a sense that these characters were going to live on and have the kind of vitality that they had? Did you have a sense at that time that they had that kind of longevity?
Well, immortality is a strange beast. I think it's like somebody said, if you fail at something, then you teach, right? Or he said that having unable to sell his books, he decided to write for posterity. No, we did not. What we were doing, and we really thought this way, we thought the same way Harold Ross of the New Yorker thought. He said you have two elements of despair. One was non-professional, and two things he feared most. One was non-professionalism, the other thing was despair. And if you can control your despair and think of yourself as a professional, to me, that's the most exquisite term. God, you look at it and say, this guy's a professional. And that means that that doesn't mean to me that he can sell. It means that it's the best that could have done. And like Leon Schlesinger one time, I heard somebody saying about Paul Julian in the background. So I said, God, he can really draw. And Schlesinger said, of course he can draw. He's an artist, isn't he? As you know, everybody's been in art school. He said, God, that master can draw. That's the perfect, you can't think of a better way of stating it, can you? I mean, if you say, God, you can draw, you want to die right then. I don't care about God, I just care about another professional talking. So, of course we didn't think about the future. We thought about the present. We thought that we were making competent films for the public, for what they were intended to get laughs. But we hadn't any idea what the audience was. We knew they weren't children because they were made for theaters. We hadn't any idea what an audience in the theater was. So we decided the most sensible thing to do was try to make pictures for ourselves. If we amused ourselves, we went on the rather pathetic hope that other people would follow. It turned out they did. But I don't know. It seems to me that when I was a little boy, I was born, I lived when I was 6 years old right across from the Hollywood High School on Sunset Boulevard, 2 blocks from Chaplin's studio. And I used to go over there, we used to go over there, that's when I got bloody nose, from getting my nose against that wire fence and watching him work. And I'd seen these pictures, and I couldn't understand why he didn't learn from these pictures. Because he'd do things over and over and over again out there, these pictures he didn't write the first time. I didn't realize the difference. I didn't know, why don't I do it right the first time? You remember that my father came home one time and he said he'd seen a film that Chaplin did. It was a scene where, those little choppy runs they used when they went around corners. Everybody did it. And this was a scene where he wanted to do it on ice. Well, we didn't have any ice, so they put oil paper and put some oil on it. So we went around the corner while he was doing that little hobby run. He kept falling down. My father said he shot the scene 132 times before he had it right. And of course, you may remember that on that, was it City Lights or something, where the girl was handing the flower, do you remember that one? And I think they shot that scene, if you can imagine, 100 times. He could not get her to understand when you hand somebody a flower, you hand them this way. You don't hand them this way. She'd go around like this, she'd run, she'd hold it, she'd do everything wrong. But he said, you bring it up to them. That's what you do with the flower. And he just couldn't get it through. And she was not a good actress, but he finally forced her to push that flower to the right way. But anyway, I lived there, and I know, and then we lived down in Ocean Park, which was more than the Malibu of its day. That's where they shot all the Hal Roach and Max Center comedies and so on. And so if there was a crowd scene, we were part of the crowd. They gave you a box lunch like they do here. You still get paid. I'm grateful. I want you to know I'm very grateful. I'm not losing it. So I had the opportunity of seeing these people at work and having seen the fun that they had. And I was determined to grow up to be a Keystone Cop. I went for video. and never gone by the time I grew up. So, but as far as going into animation or having any idea that I could go into that, it never occurred to me. But the miracle, as I say, the miracle of my life was that when I came out of art school in 1931, the Depression really, before Roosevelt came in and helped us along, I came out hoping to get a job, maybe getting a job as a janitor, or doing something, I don't know, working as one of my animators did, working at Forest Lawn, fixing the toenails of the sibs. I didn't care as long as I had a job. And Avi Iwerks, a friend of mine went to work with him, Iwerks, when he just left Disney's, and he offered me a job drawing. And I was 19. And so for over 60 years, people have paid me to draw. But one thing I would not do limited animation. I mean, that's a terrible, terrible, terrible sacrifice. To give up what you can do reasonably well, it's fair professional. To give it up to do something that be the equivalent of somebody who can play the piano pretty well, as the man comes along and said, I'll pay you twice as much money, but all you can do for the rest of your life is beat the triangle. And that's really what it is. Going from full animation to limited animation and doing that is giving up everything that you're supposed to represent. I can't argue too much with anybody who earns their living. That's their business. But I can argue with anybody that desecrates a good professional form of entertainment. And that's what happened. So when I came out and I was offered a situation very much like Hanna-Barbera, because the first time I met Jack Warner after all those years was 15 years after I started directing. Because we made up for it with the producers he sent down. so we were sent over to, so we were trotted over to the private dining room where Jerry and Hack Warner was doing. Jerry and Jack Warner were having lunch, and so we trotted in there. I know, only producer walking ahead of us, a horrible little man. Like a spastic grumpy. He says, these are my boys. Jack Warner sitting there, and he looked up with his mouth full of gefilte fish or something. He says, I don't know where this shit our studio is. That makes you feel good. Cartoon studio. He didn't know where it was even. And Harry Warner, this is the capper, this is true. Harry Warner says, the only thing I know about our cartoon studio is that we do Mickey Mouse. That's true. That's what he said. So I said, Mr. Warner, we're going to make the best Mickey Mouses we know how. You're very kind to me. Thank you.